Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Dan with Trace here. Today we're going to talk about video utilization in youth soccer. The agenda for today, we're going to go through what game film typically looks like today and in the past, the problem with actually utilizing and getting value from video. We're going to then look at Trace, short form personalized moments, the impact Trace can potentially have on your club. We're then going to look at the interface, and finally we're going to introduce my colleague Tim Bennett, former college coach of 20 plus years, who's going to go over Trace ID, a new feature which is a part of Trace. So typically this is what you may have seen around the fields. In brief, just filming a game of soccer in itself was very labor intensive, tedious, time consuming, and also very expensive. You know, you have this big, bulky, sort of heavy equipment here, manual filming, not an easy process at all. Recently, there are now more sort of automated cameras that film the game. The real problem with that is they just deliver the raw game film. So the real problem is actually utilizing and extracting value from video. So it's okay, you have a 80, 90 minute game. Now you've actually got to do something with that content. And that's something we'll explore here in the presentation. So in order to receive value from video, the footage has to be broken down into digestible, personalized content that will actually get utilized and engaged with. The issue from first-hand experience as a former player and coach is time. Coaches generally don't have 3 to 4 hours to be editing and distributing moments to every member of the team after every game, and they're also not getting paid to do this. As a former coach, I tried to do this with my U12 team 8-9 years ago in Raleigh. I told the parents, look, we're training 3 times a week, you have a serious coach here, and you're paying the club a lot of money. I thought it would be extremely beneficial for my players to watch their own moments after games. A lot of stuff that I was saying as a coach wasn't really resonating with players. So we hired a videographer that year, paid the videographer $150 a game for 15 games, $3,000 in total. I edited, distributed the first game. This took me around 3.5 hours, and I never touched the footage for the rest of the season. We had a whole bunch of content that just sat there, unused, and I know firsthand my players didn't watch any footage because I could see the view count. We were lucky to get 4 or 5 views per game. The parents also didn't really receive any value, so a whole bunch of money spent for very little ROI. If you manage to film the game in the first place, you've then got to find a way to utilize it. And there are several, third-party companies where you can send the footage off to who will break it down for you. This process, again, is not really ideal. There's a lot of downloading, uploading, multiple companies to deal with, huge lag times. And I believe it's really important for players to watch their moments as close as possible after the final whistle. Anything after 48 hours and that sort of learning curve decreases pretty significantly. So time, we want to deliver personalized moments as soon as possible after the final whistle. The process with using third-party companies is also very expensive. Essentially, you're paying humans in a foreign country to edit the footage for you. The costs quickly add up, and again, not really feasible for almost every youth soccer team. So really, we're still facing the same problem. There's no easy way to effectively utilize video. And I believe one question not enough coaches and directors ask is, if the point of filming video is to improve individual and team performance, how do players actually learn? I know when I was a player, I learned best by learning myself. I believe that's the way most humans learn best in general. A coach could have said all sorts of stuff to me, but until it clicked in my head, I wasn't really able to implement this and improve as a player. So now we know that players learn best from learning something themselves. How does this relate to video? Well, for players to develop from video, they have to watch video. In order to watch video, the content has to be relevant, enticing, and convenient. At Trace, we deliver content that's highly personalized, convenient, and easy to digest, essentially making it valuable. So at Trace, we're all about short form, personalized moments, and we see this in the viewership metrics. On average, a Trace game will receive over 1,600 views per game. With traditional game film, you're looking at between 5 to 10 views per game. We put a huge emphasis on engagement and viewing metrics at Trace because we wanted to build a product that people actually utilize and engage with on almost a daily basis, similar to Instagram or TikTok, for example. I know this to be true because I co-founded Stream company that became the leader in soccer game film and highlight reels. We got to a stage where we were executing very well. However, in 2018, we only had an average of 6.94 views per game. Yes, you heard that right, less than 7 views per game. And this data was taken from over 12,000 games. So teams spending $200, $250 a game. Some clubs would invest $20, $30, over $40,000 a year in stream sports to film their programs and essentially utilize very little of that content. It was for that reason that we merged with Trace in 2018. Again, short form, relevant, and personalized content is the way of the future and is realistically the only way to generate engagement, which equates to utilization and actually extracting value from video. So let's look at the impact Trace can have on your club. I believe today we're in a situation where it's more important than ever to offer and showcase real value to members. Technology creates a lot of transparency. The future we see is that all youth soccer games will be filmed from U8s and up in the next 3 to 4 years. It'd be just as common as playing wearing shin guards or training, for example, and it'd be very easy for any parent, even a parent that knows nothing about soccer, to see how far their son or daughter have progressed under a certain club or coach, for example. It's therefore really important to offer real value to members, and the members are the ones who are going to be doing all the marketing for you after that. Here's some of the benefits that we've already spoke about, from a player development aspect to recruiting aspect to growing revenue within the club because of the value you're offering members, to player retention year on year. And we've also got marketing distribution channels here and building a transparent club culture. So now let's look at the actual interface here. So here we have the Trace interface, and everything I'm about to show you is done via artificial intelligence. So no humans coming in here and editing any footage, and that's important to recognize. What that means is there's no lag in delivery time. The magic really happens as soon as the raw game film is being uploaded. Every individual's player moments are automatically extracted, the player's stats are automatically curated, and what that results in is a time saving, right? So you're not waiting 24, 48 hours to receive moments back. You receive them back when they're fresh in players' memory, when they can actually develop from watching their moments. Like I said, we wanted to build a product that gets utilized, right? That gets engaged with almost on a daily basis. So we could have filled this whole page up with stuff that individual coaches told us they wanted early doors, such as average team defensive shape, average team offensive shape, etc. We actually added those onto the interface, but not a lot of people are actually utilizing them. So we don't want to make the interface more cumbersome than it needs to be. As soon as you do that, it decreases engagement. So everything we do here is with a purpose. You'll see here we have the icons down here below. Some of the icons you'll see, we've got the playlist icon, we've got the player icon. These are moments, so any moment in a game you can share, email, download. You can add any moment to your Trace ID, which is something that Tim Bennett is going to go over. So let's take a look at the playlist icon to start off with. And as mentioned, we are a very data-driven company. We actually released a study in March. We wanted to see what playlists people were clicking on and how long they were staying on those playlists. So you've got all these different playlists here. You've got the full game. We've got touch chains, which is past combinations that have occurred in the game. Moments in different areas of the field. And then below that, individual player touch compilations here. So we released a study. We looked at 3 million moments. We wanted to see what people were clicking on and how long they were staying on those moments for. We saw that less than 2% of views came from the full game playlist. 98% of views came from all these other playlists here, which is pretty amazing when you think about it, because traditionally the only way to access game film has been via the full game playlist by watching the full game. So the fact is that less than 2% of users with Trace choose to watch video via the full game playlist. Again, tells us that short form personalized content is the way to get people to actually watch and engage with video. What's even more interesting than that, the average duration, so the average time someone would stay on the full game playlist was only 1 minute and 36 seconds. Whereas our users, any users that watch video via any one of the other playlists, stayed on the other playlist, the more personalized playlist, stayed there for 5 to 6 times longer. So they consumed 7 to 8 minutes of video rather than 1 minute and 36 seconds, which again results in utilizing video effectively, results in player development. You know, we want players to watch their moments over and over again, and then maybe watch your fellow center midfielders' moments, for example. Here's the study that was released, but really interesting, and just affirms again, short form personalized moments are really the only way to realistically get players to engage with video. So let's move on to the player icon that you saw here, and probably before that I should mention that we've got a radar here on the top right. So one of the co-founders of Trace, employee number 5 when the GPS technology was first invented. We use a unique kind of GPS technology. It helps us identify the parameters of the field, location of players on the field. So anytime you want, from a coach's perspective, you can click on the top right. They give you a tactical view of the players, as you see right here. It will disappear after 5 seconds if you don't touch it as well. Again, next, let's look at the player icon you have right here. So players wear small GPS sensors, and I'm going to drag this page over right here so you see what I'm talking about. 1 by 1.5 inch sensors, really convenient. Actually, a shin guard strap that's really convenient for keeping shin guards up. Sensor weighs 0.4 ounces, so very lightweight. As a result of wearing the sensors, we basically had a ton of data. We went to Under Armour Performance and worked with them. We basically asked them, how do we make this data as relevant as possible to soccer? I really like the way we use max efforts and stamina, but I think the biggest insight we've seen from the stats hasn't necessarily been sort of a coach coming in and saying, Anna, you should have covered more ground, etc. Although that can be useful. The biggest sort of insight we've seen is it just encourages players to compete with themselves a lot more, and it's a lot of fun for players. If you think about it, it's a little bit like every time I go to the gym and I wear my Apple Watch, whenever I measure myself, I'm always more productive, more efficient. I always enjoy the session more. I always get more out of it. The next session, I'm able to monitor my progress. So it's had a very similar effect here with the sort of sensor data that we get. So you've got max efforts here. What max efforts is essentially sprints that have occurred in a game. So anytime a player is within 15% of their top speed, so say your top speed in the game, for example, is 12 miles an hour. Anytime you're within 12 miles an hour that's sustained for more than 1 second, so a sprint, that is calculated as a max effort. And the stamina will calculate a player's average deterioration of those max efforts throughout the game, which I think is actually a really great way, probably one of the best ways to evaluate stamina in soccer, because if you think about it, that's what it is, right? When I was in my best shape as a player was when I could sprint a lot and recover. It's a bit like I've never seen Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, sprint that's almost not at his full intensity. So there's a player who's in really great soccer condition. Like I said, the stats will improve individual player work ethic, and you should see your average team work ethic as a whole increase pretty significantly, just due to the fact that the players are being held accountable. And it's a lot of fun, this level of transparency. I can't emphasize this point enough, actually. The transparency has been a huge positive, literally 0 negatives from the level of transparency here, which is really great to see. So if I click on a player, you're able to see obviously their performance metrics. Now I love the metrics. They do, like I said, they will help individual player work ethic and teamwork ethic. But I think the most valuable part of Trace by far is the personalized moments, essentially. And this is the difference really between utilizing video and a lot of content just sat there and not really getting utilized very much. So, realistically, would Maggie have come through and watched her moments in a game? The data clearly tells us that no, not very often. But when it's personalized, relevant, in short form, easy, comes straight to her phone, very easy for her to come and watch her moments, easy for a coach to come and do the same, the DOC, easy for her relatives, parents, etc. So very easy for me to come through here and watch Maggie's performance. I can skip through to whatever sort of moment I want, and I can review sort of Maggie's performance here in minutes rather than hours. Essentially what we're doing at Trace is compressing time, so something that may have taken you in the past 4 or 5 hours to do might now only take you, 4 or 5 minutes to do. And that is essentially the difference between utilizing video and not utilizing video, which for us is really important. We always say, if you think about investing in video or any technology system, why invest in it if you're not going to actually utilize and engage with and get a ton of value from it? So without further ado, I'm going to now pass you on to my colleague Tim Bennett, former college coach of 20 plus years, ECNL, DA director, who's going to go over Trace ID, a game changer, especially when it comes to recruitment, and it has a lot of applications, but specifically he's going to touch on the recruiting aspect here.
Thanks for the introduction, Dan. I appreciate that. So before we dive into Trace ID, I want to talk about the current college soccer recruiting landscape. More importantly, the effects that COVID has had on it. We know over the past year about all the cancellations. We know that seasons have been canceled, leagues have been canceled, training sessions, college ID camps, showcases. Youth soccer had been put on pause for about 9 months because of COVID. We also know the effect that COVID has had on college and universities, in particular in college athletics. What that means for the college soccer coach is that their budgets have been slashed, that they're not going to have as much money in their recruiting budget to recruit off campus as they did just a short year ago. So they're going to have to be very efficient in how they spend that money. They're going to have to be very selective at the events that they attend and how many staff members that they have cover these events. And then the last bit is we know the NCAA rules changes or adaptations that COVID has caused, in particular the dead period. We know that the Division I dead period has been extended until April 15th of 2021, and we also know that that has affected the recruiting processes for Division II, Division III, NEIA, and junior college. So when you add all these things up, what that means for players is that they have missed a lot of live recruiting opportunities. But it's not just the ones that they have missed, is that these COVID effects, they're permanent effects. That these live evaluations aren't going to come in abundance like they once were going forward. So we've got 3 big questions to ask and then find a solution to. Is we've got to figure out a way to recreate these missed live evaluations. Well, the simple answer would be, we'll just put together a highlight video and send that off, and then maybe we'll add some full games. That's not good enough anymore. College coaches demand and need much more information. So we've got to figure out a way to recreate these live events with complete context. And by complete context, I mean we have to recreate the exact same experience college coaches have watching a player play live. We've got to do it virtually. We've got to do it online. And the third question that we have to answer is, how do we grab and hold college coaches' attention until they're able to see our players play live? So what is that solution? Well, that solution is Trace ID. What Trace ID is, it's a feature within the Trace platform that allows players to go back to their Trace games to add, organize, tag, favorite moments, and put them into a playlist. But it's a little bit more than that. Trace ID also includes a full match library. It includes player performance data, and it includes an about section, an academic and personal section. That's complete contact. In fact, it's actually more information than college coaches had to make an evaluation just a year ago. And we've put it all on one platform. So let me show you exactly what I mean here. This is Ava. Ava is a 2022 grad. She plays for Atlanta Fire in Atlanta, Georgia. This is her Trace ID. This is what she sends out to college coaches through a link And when they click on it, this is their landing page. The first thing you may notice is that Ava's got over 5,000 views, that her moments have been viewed 5,000 times. That's pretty impactful. That's a lot of evaluation. That's a lot of eyes and concentrated effort on Ava. Actually, it's a lot more than when a coach would see a player play live, right? So this is her playlist. These are the moments that she's favorited, that she's liked, that showcase her ability as a player and as an athlete. You can have as many moments in a playlist as you want. Ava's got 33 here. Let's play this first moment out here at the top of her playlist. You can see the player has the ability to spotlight themselves. Coaches have the ability to pull down the tactical radar. You can see Ava there is highlighted in green as the moment plays out underneath the radar. We've also given kind of a unique feature, a unique feature within Trace ID is we've given college coaches the ability to go from this exact second in this individual moment into the full game without ever leaving the platform. Here they're now able to go backwards 2, 3, 4 minutes, watch this moment build, or they can watch this moment play out 2, 3, 4 minutes, or to the conclusion of that respective half without ever leaving the platform. And so here's this complete context for a player. The playlist is everybody's best moments. The match is showing all those other great things, how a player deals with adversity, how they make other decisions, a little bit more movement off the ball. And we've put it in one simple platform for coaches to make those type of evaluations. 2 things on a Trace ID that are automatically updated and uploaded after every game. The first section is the match section. This will contain the 5 most recently played games automatically. Players don't have to worry about it. It's all automated for them. Similar to the match section is the statistics section, and this is also updated with the 5 most recent games. You've got the 5 player performance matrix, minutes played, distance, speed, efforts, and stamina, and then the individual player's positional radar, positional heat map. The last section is the about section. This contains team information, academic information, a bio section where players can write whatever they want to write. They can outline athletic awards, accomplishments, academic, community service, kind of complete their story, and then a contact section down at the bottom for the player's contact and the coach's contact. The last bit before I show you how fun it is to add a moment to a playlist is how to share this. And you can share it just by copying the URL. Players can text it to a college coach. They can put it on their Instagram profile. They can put it as a pinned tweet in their Twitter profile as well, or they can send it through an email. This aspect, this shareability of Trace ID really does a lot more than that. The ability for players to go back to games after every game, after a weekend of 2 games, and add moments to a playlist and share that out easily is really the biggest impact of it. The more that you recruit a school, the more likely it is they're going to recruit you. And so with the ease with which this is done, players are showing that they're leading this process. This is a player-driven process. It's not mom and dad creating these playlists and sharing them week in and week out. And it's new content. And who doesn't like watching new content? That's why we check our social media all the time to see what's next and what's new. And here players are sharing new content each week. And so you can imagine the impression that it's making on college coaches. The more that you recruit a school, the more likely it is that they're going to recruit you. And by doing this simple process, they're showing a lot of great characteristics to these college coaches. They're showing that it's their process, they're determined, they're driven, they're intelligent, they're organized. All those things that you can't pick up by watching video or you can't pick up by watching a player play live. Players are now able to demonstrate that just through this really frictionless sharing process through Trace ID. So before I hand it back to Dan, let me show you how easy it is to add a moment to a playlist. So I just navigated here to one of Ava's latest games, and you'll notice down here at the bottom, there's a star with a little ID in it. If this were a moment that Ava wanted to add to Trace ID, she just clicks this star, adds create moment. Here you can drag this spotlight anywhere you want inside the individual moment, and now we can add tags. We've got attacking tags, we've got defending tags. I'll change these here a little bit, just randomly there, and then we'll add it to Trace ID. And let's go see what it looks like. Anytime a player adds a moment to their playlist, it'll automatically appear at the top. So in order to get a proper order or sequence, we just grab these gray dots and we can shuffle it either way we can. Or if we don't like where we put this spotlight or we want to change the tags, we can hit our little pen and paper icon, our edit button, and go through that exact same process again, or simply just remove the moment and it is gone. Trace ID has been out for about 8 months now. And this is some of the feedback that we've gotten from college coaches, is that their first initial viewing session is about 14 minutes where they're navigating back and forth between the playlist and the full game video, as well as the performance data and the about section. It is a holistic picture of a player. You've got the 5-game library, which allows for some long-term and short-term tracking, as well as some transparency and accountability. The last bit is social media. Trace's short-form video moments are perfect for social media. We know that college coaches are going to research players on Instagram and Twitter to find out what their online persona is and to see if it matches with their program's core values. Since we know that, we might as well make social media an online recruiting opportunity. It's easy to download Trace's individual moments and upload them to Instagram and Twitter. Same thing with our Trace ID profile link. Since we know they're going to be there, let's make sure that we take full advantage of that. So Dan, I'll hand it right back off to you. Thanks, guys.